She walks off the court in tears, and 48 hours later, she's already booking flights. That's the kind of athlete Eala has become. Dinner plans get rearranged. Evenings get cleared. When she plays, an entire country stops what it's doing. That's what real fandom looks like. Now she's landed in Washington, D.C. for a tournament worth over $1 million, and the crowd waiting outside the William H. G. Fitzgerald Tennis Center is making noise this event hasn't heard in years. Not American flags, Filipino flags. Blue, red, and a single sun with 3 stars, waving along the fences. Just 3 days earlier, their hero had walked off center court in tears after a brutal Wimbledon battle against Jasmine Paolini. But she didn't go home to rest. She got straight on a plane. And what's waiting for her in DC is one of the toughest, deepest fields this tournament has assembled in years. If you've followed Eala's rise, through Miami, through Madrid, through Berlin, you already know this is exactly the kind of story we cover here. So hit subscribe, stay close, and let's break down why this DC arrival is such a massive deal. Let's rewind 4 days. July 6th, Wimbledon. Round of 16. Eala falls to Paolini in a 3-set battle, but here's the part that matters. No Filipina has ever gone this deep at a Grand Slam in the Open era. Ever. She left center court to a standing ovation. The next day, one word on her Instagram, grateful. That was Monday. By Wednesday, she was already in Washington, ready to go again. And this DC field, don't let the smaller badge fool you. On paper, it's a WTA 500 event. In reality, it's playing like a Masters-level draw. 7 players from the world's top 20 are entered. Elena Svitolina, the same player Eala took apart in Berlin just weeks ago, is back, and this time revenge is clearly on her mind. Marta Kostyuk, a former DC finalist, is in the draw too. So is Naomi Osaka, a 2-time US Open champion still fighting to reclaim her old form. Venus Williams, 46 years old and somehow still owning the spotlight, is there. And then there's Leylah Fernandez, the defending champion, the player who lifted this exact trophy just last year. But there's a question hanging over all of it. A year ago, in Cincinnati, Eala's body simply gave out under the weight of a packed schedule. People remember that collapse. And now the tennis world is quietly wondering the same thing all over again. Can a 21-year-old really peak on grass at Wimbledon, and then turn around and peak again on hard courts in North America, all inside 3 weeks? History says that's almost impossible. Eala has spent this entire year proving history wrong. Start with the numbers. The women's prize pool in Washington sits at over $1.5 million, and once you add hospitality and tournament commitments, the total climbs past $1.6 million. For a player who, just 12 months ago, wasn't even ranked inside the world's top 140, this isn't just a paycheck anymore. This is a completely different bracket of career. And she didn't slip into this field through the back door. The WTA confirmed 20 direct entries into the DC main draw, and Eala's name is right there among them. No wild card. No special favor. No charity invite. Her ranking, currently sitting at number 32 and about to climb even higher once Wimbledon points are added on July 14th, is what bought her that seat. A few outlets back home actually reported she'd been given a wild card entry. The WTA's official release says otherwise. She earned every bit of this. So how exactly did she earn it? Let's compress her June into 30 seconds. Berlin, June 17th, she beats world number 10 Elena Rybakina, 7-5, 6-4. 1 day later, same city, she beats Elena Svitolina, Wimbledon champion and a 5-time Grand Slam semi-finalist, 6-3, 6-4. Back-to-back, on grass, against players who are supposed to own that surface. Then Wimbledon, round of 32, July 4th. The defending champion, Iga Swiatek, standing on the other side of the net. Eala wins, 7-6, 6-2. Her second career win over Swiatek. You don't beat a player like that at Wimbledon by luck. You beat her because you belong on that court. And after that match, she walked up to the microphone and said something that Filipino Twitter has already turned into a full-blown mantra. The court is not the place to shrink yourself. That's not just a soundbite. That's a mindset shift, the exact message her coaching team has reportedly been drilling into her for months. Now zoom out and look at the pattern building around her. Madrid, a massive, viral airport welcome. Paris, the same scene, all over again. Hamburg, thousands of fans, all documented, all shared across Filipino social media within hours. And now Wimbledon has added another chapter to that same story. Which brings us right back to Washington. A player who wasn't ranked in the top 140 a year ago. A field stacked with Grand Slam champions and former finalists. A body that broke down under pressure just 12 months ago. And a crowd of fans who flew flags outside a stadium in America for a tennis player from the Philippines. The only question left is simple: can she do it again, right here, right now? Because if the weeks have taught us anything, it's this: bet against Alex Eala at your own risk. Thousands of fans didn't just show up in Berlin. They didn't just show up in Madrid. And now they're already lining the fences in Washington before she's even played a single point. This isn't a coincidence anymore. This is a movement. The LA Times picked up on it too. Back on June 29th, they ran a full feature just on the wave of Filipino support following her from city to city. And Washington isn't some random stop on that map, it's the next natural chapter. The DMV area happens to hold one of the largest Filipino-American communities in the entire country. So if her last few tournaments are any indication, the fences outside the Fitzgerald Tennis Center are already packed. For every single Filipino fan who spent the last 2 years telling their friends and co-workers, remember this name, Alex Eala, this is their payoff moment. The world isn't slowly catching on anymore. The world has already arrived. And there's a very specific reason all of this is happening right now, all at once. His name is Tony Nadal. Yes, that Nadal. The man who coached his nephew Rafael to 22 Grand Slam titles. The mind behind one of the greatest claycourt careers the sport has ever seen. He also happens to run the academy in Mallorca where Alex Eala has been training since she was just 13 years old. And according to Tennis 365, confirmed directly by her head coach Juan Bosch, Tony Nadal has taken on a personal, hands-on role in shaping Eala's game throughout 2026. Here's how Eala herself described that relationship, in her own words, quoted earlier this year, Tony told her things she didn't always want to hear, but things she needed to hear. And Tony himself has said publicly that she carries huge potential, both in her game and in her personality. That's not some polite compliment a legend tosses out while passing through. That's a legendary coach deliberately choosing where to invest the next chapter of his career. And it goes even further. According to Yahoo Sports, Rafael Nadal himself has reportedly been stepping in through Juan Bosch to help guide her tactically this season. Think about that for a second. Rafael Nadal doesn't spend his time or attention on players he doesn't believe will matter. This isn't casual support. This is a real, calculated bet on her future. And Washington is the first real hardcourt test of everything that Bet has been building toward. Now look at what's actually sitting on the other side of this tournament. Montreal for the National Bank Open, Cincinnati right after that in August. And then the US Open in New York, starting August 24th. This isn't just one event on a calendar. This is a runway, a stretch of tournaments that could carry Alex Eala into the WTA's top 20 for the very first time in Philippine tennis history. And it makes sense that Washington is where that runway begins. The Philippine embassy sits just a few blocks away from the tennis center. This entire event sits inside the diplomatic corridor of the United States. So when she steps onto a practice court this week, she isn't just another athlete warming up. In the most literal sense possible, she's a diplomatic presence, a 21-year-old from Manila, carrying her country's flag through the political capital of the nation home to the largest Filipino diaspora on earth. Money doesn't lie. And right now, the money is telling us something huge is happening with women's tennis in Southeast Asia. Here's the bigger picture nobody's talking about enough. Tennis, as a sport, is actively pushing into Southeast Asia right now, not slowly, not quietly, but in a real, commercial, competitive way. This isn't some vague trend analysts are guessing at. The numbers back it up. The WTA's total prize pool has jumped 13% compared to last year. 13% in a single year is not a small bump. That's a signal. That's the sport putting real money behind real audience growth. And tournaments like this one in Washington, D.C. are getting serious financial backing for one very specific reason. Players like Alex Eala are pulling in crowds and eyeballs the sport simply never used to reach in this part of the world. Think about that for a second. Every single flag lining that fence outside the Fitzgerald Tennis Center. Every jersey in those stands with her name on the back. Every group of fans who flew in, or drove hours, or just walked over from the neighborhood to catch a glimpse of her practicing. That's not just fan support. That's an economic engine. That's exactly why the prize money keeps climbing higher and higher every single year. Sponsors notice this. Broadcasters notice this. The WTA itself notices this. And Alex Eala, whether she talks about it or not, is right in the middle of that shift. Now let's talk about what happens if the results go her way here in Washington. If she makes it all the way to the semi-finals in this tournament, she's projected to break into the top 25 in the world before Montreal even begins. Let that sink in for a second. Top 25. A player who wasn't even inside the top 140 just 12 months ago. And if she goes even further than that, if she somehow wins the entire title here in DC, this stops being a nice, feel-good underdog story that people share once and forget. This becomes something much bigger. This becomes a full-blown, undeniable career trajectory. The kind of run that gets talked about for years. But before we get ahead of ourselves and start writing the fairy tale ending, there's one thing standing right in the middle of that path. One thing that keeps this story grounded in reality instead of pure fantasy. She lost her last match. Not some small, forgettable early round match either. She lost to Jasmine Paolini, in 3 full sets, on center court, at Wimbledon, the single biggest stage of her entire career so far. And here's the part that stings the most. She actually led in the second set. She had it right there in her hands. She just couldn't close it out in that third set when it mattered most. Now think about how most athletes would react to a loss like that. A loss on the biggest stage, with the match slipping away right when victory looked close. Plenty of players would need a full week, maybe longer, just to mentally process something like that. Some players would fly straight home, shut everything down, avoid interviews, avoid cameras, avoid the spotlight completely for a while. That's the normal, human reaction to heartbreak like that. Alex Eala did neither of those things. Instead, she posted just 7 simple words. A mix of Tagalog and English, put together in one short caption, Maraming Salamat, Wimbledon. Thank you for everything, Wimbledon. That's it. No long explanation. No dramatic paragraph about disappointment. Just gratitude, straight from the heart. And within 48 hours of walking off that court in tears, she was already on a flight heading west, straight toward her next tournament. Nobody needs to sit here and explain what that says about her mindset. She already said it herself, loud and clear, without even trying to make a statement out of it. So let's rewind through her entire month one more time, because honestly, the numbers speak louder than any commentary ever could. Elena Rybakina, beaten, in straight sets. Elena Svitolina, beaten, also in straight sets. And then Iga Swiatek, the defending Wimbledon champion herself, taken down right there at Wimbledon. On top of all that, there was that quiet, completely unfiltered moment in Berlin, a phone call to her father, caught right there on court, that she didn't even try to hide from the cameras around her. There was a full, genuine standing ovation on center court after her Wimbledon exit. And there was that single-word Instagram caption that somehow felt like a quiet prayer of gratitude to millions of Filipinos watching from back home, refreshing their phones, waiting to see how she was doing. And now, right now, this very week, she's got boots on it in Washington, D.C. She's been dropped straight into one of the deepest WTA 500 fields this event has ever put together in its entire history. And she's not sneaking into that field through some side door either. She's there as a direct main draw entrant. No wild card. No favor called in. No special treatment. Just pure ranking, earned the hard way, match after match, city after city. Step back and really look who this player has become. The Alex Eala who landed in Washington this week is simply not the same player who first showed up in Miami as a qualifier just 18 months ago. That version of her was still fighting to prove she belonged. This version of her is the player Tony Nadal personally chose to mentor, out of every young talent he could have picked. This is the player who stepped onto grass at Wimbledon and figured out a puzzle that Iga Swiatek herself couldn't solve. This is the player that an entire diaspora, right here in Washington, has been waiting years to finally see up close and in person. So here's the real question hanging over this entire tournament. Does she push all the way through to the semi-finals in Washington, riding this incredible wave of momentum from her Wimbledon run? Or does all that Wimbledon fatigue finally catch up to her early, maybe even as soon as round 1, against a dangerous, seeded top 20 opponent? Nobody knows for sure yet. That's exactly what makes this so worth watching. Drop your prediction down in the comments and let us know what you actually think is going to happen. Who do you want to see her matched up against in this draw? Do you think Washington ends in celebration, or do you think this is where the fatigue finally wins? If you've been following Alex Eala's journey since Miami, since Madrid, since Berlin, then you already know exactly why this particular story matters so much right now. Washington isn't the end of anything. It's really just chapter 1 of a much bigger 3-tournament stretch, DC, then Montreal, then Cincinnati, all leading straight into the US Open. And every ranking point, every draw announcement, every crowd moment from Fitzgerald all the way to Flushing Meadows is going to keep unfolding right in front of us, step by step. So if this story kept you hooked from start to finish, do us a small favor. Drop a like on this video, leave your prediction down in the comments, and if you don't want to miss the next chapter of this incredible journey, go ahead and subscribe. We'll be right back here with the next update, breaking it all down for you. See you in the next one.